So I'm talking to Elon again soon. I'm curious to get your perspective on it. If I wanted to talk to him about Tic Tac, about these weird out there propulsion ideas, which are obviously, just like you said, if there's something to it, if it can be investigated somehow, it would be extremely useful for us to understand in the effort of developing propulsion systems that can get us cheaply to out to space. What what should Elon think about this stuff? What should he do? What should people like him
I think people
do?
need to open their aperture up and stay off of, take the next step and go, we are tied to fuels and either solid rocket or liquid or, whatever we do, but it's a thrust generated where we rapidly expand gas to create thrust. Just really in layman's terms, we can get into what, but that's what it does. If you have something that you can contain that is a fuel source that would last a significant amount of time. Those rocket boosters go, and when they're done, they're done. There's enough to get them back down. That's it. There's not a huge, they're not coming back and go, oh, I still got 3/4 of a tank. Let's bolt them on and do it again. His system's not doing that. But the way contracting, especially in the government has tons of money, but you got to remember the government has to justify how they spend our tax dollars for the most part. There's times where they can hide money in the budget to get stuff done. But then when you look at, and I'm just going to throw a few out there, but if you look at what Amazon, does with Bezos, and you've got Elon, there's some big money out there.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking, Bezos alone could buy companies like big companies. Apple's another one. These companies got huge, huge amounts of money. And then just go over to the Gates Foundation, and they've got gazillions and gazillions of dollars. We've got universities. There's so much money out there. If we really wanted to do it, aside from what the government wants to do, because we do live in a free society, I think there's enough to go, how do we do this? And because when you work outside of what the government would want to do, we're not working on this necessarily for the United States, although I am a huge giant. I will be
American.
I would never. Yeah, I am an American.
You're talking to somebody born in the Soviet Union.
So-
I can't believe you agreed to this.
But when
haven't killed me yet.
Yeah, well, you're here.
What? Yeah.
You've been here for a while.
No, I'm joking. I'm American citizen. I'm actually pretty much American.
But see, when you do that, so you let's just look at American universities.
Yes.
So there's some brilliant minds, and we'll just use MIT because you worked down there.
Yeah.
There's some brilliant minds, but there's a huge chunk of those brilliant minds that are not American citizens. So if you want to get into government stuff and you are not an American citizen, it gets really, really, really hard. But if I take money like Bezos money, Elon money, and let's just say they want to work together, they can split it up 50-50, the two of them, when the technology gets developed. But now I'm not constrained by who has to do the work. I just want to make sure that I try and keep it in the United States, because technology is technology. And if it gets developed and gets over to where, a country gets a hold of it and then just basically uses it for their own, because you save them all the research time, you don't want to do that. But if we can get to the point where we do it on the International Space Station. We realized that space was too expensive for one country to do alone. So we made the International Space Station, and we have a conglomerate. It's the one thing that the Russians and the U.S. actually work together on. Mm-hmm. Think about it. That's it. We work together on space because we realized it's way too expensive for us to do alone and effective. So we've got this thing that's been out there floating around for God, now what is it, like 20 years that thing's been up there floating around? So it's getting old. We're going to have to replace parts and do stuff. But if we can pool the money together and come up with something that would literally change mankind and change travel and allow us to actually do a more effective thing of exploring. Because if you develop that technology, you don't even have to send a manned person. If you can develop a technology and with our automation and where we're progressing and our computing power, to send something out that's not just floating around when, that can react a lot quicker, something that could actually go down to the surface and come back up. So right now, everything we get out of Mars, it goes down there and then it just sends data back. It analyzes. But if I've got a technology that can go up there really quick, I'm not worried about man. I don't have life support systems and all that, but it can go down, it can cruise around, it can hover above, it can take samples, and it can actually take Martian soil and then bring it back.
Yeah.
So we can analyze it here. That's a game changer. Yeah. It's a complete game changer because it opens up all the planets.
Exactly. So in the sense, the Tic Tac is a symbol. So whatever you think, even from a debunking perspective, there's a non-zero probability that it's alien technology. And in that sense, it serves as a beacon of hope and a reason to, like you said, widen the aperture and to invest big amounts of money into thinking outside the box. Like it's almost a hope to say we can do better propulsion. We can overcome physics in an order of magnitude better way. And it's worthwhile to try.
I think, and I don't think the money, if you look at the big picture with the amount of money, some that's out there floating around these private companies, I think if you said, hey, I've got, let's just say $100 million, which really $100 million relative to Bezos has got what, 100 and some billion dollars in net worth. Yeah. So if he said, hey, $100 million, you drop $100 million, and I go, and I'm going to put a, like the government will send a broad area announcement out that says, hey, we're looking for this technology, or a DARPA program. But what if I just said, hey, who's to stop Bezos and Elon from doing that on their own to say, hey, I want to go pool universities because they have fewer restrictions because it's not tax dollars. They don't have the checks and balances. They can do whatever they want. It's their money. Oh, sorry about that. Mm-hmm. To go, hey, I'm going to put this out and I'm going to get the best physicists that are working at CERN, that are at MIT, that are at Caltech, at the schools I mentioned. And oh, by the way, a few of these guys are propulsion experts. And I'm going to fund you guys for 10 years. So you get $10 million a year, and I'm going to give you your salaries, and we're going to do that, or whatever the amount works. So let's cut it down to 5 so we can pay you well, right? To do the research. But oh, by the way, the research it's not classified, but it's controlled. So we're not going to publicly just put this out in journals. But if we make a leap that we think would advance, because although let's say there's 10 of them, those 10 scientists come up with something and they put out a paper, there might be a number 11 at another university that reads that paper and says, hey, I kind of had this idea, and now you can get a thought pool that pushes us in and gets us out of the mindset, because we have a tendency we evolve the stuff that we create. But yeah, it's like I was joking because, I know a ton of guys with PhDs and girls. And I said, but how much, when a person gets a PhD in like engineering, how much new math is really being done? I said, there's a handful of people in the world that are really doing, I'm talking Stephen Hawking's type brilliance that is going, I'm really doing something that's totally different.
That's a big dramatic thing now going on in physics, that everybody's converged towards this local minima or local maximum, however you think about it. And it's again, same as with the Tic Tac, thinking outside the box is not accepted, and it probably should be.
But it's hard, because if you go back to Einstein, back to the original, he was out of the box. Yeah. He did not think the norm.
True genius.
Had he not thought out of the box and came up with some of his theories, where would we be?